Wait, you're Derek's wife? He said he brought someone. I just assumed it would be someone more polished. The laughter hit me before I could process the words. A small cluster of people, champagne in hand, all eyes sliding toward me like I was a curiosity rather than a guest. I smiled. I kept it together, but something cold settled in my chest that night, and it never really left. Derek straightened his tie. He looked away. Not at me. Just away, and what none of them knew. Not Derek. Not his colleagues, not a single person standing in that glittering room was that the man hosting the entire party had been looking for me for over a decade. My name is Delphine. I'm 31 years old. I grew up in a small town in rural Georgia, the kind of place where ambition and poverty live right next door to each other, sometimes in the same house, sometimes in the same person. The air there always smelled like red clay after rain and something faintly like cut grass. And if you grew up there knowing you wanted more, you learned very quickly to keep that want quiet. I work as a part-time bookkeeper for a small landscaping company. It isn't glamorous. I put my accounting degree on hold after my mother got sick and the money simply ran out. There's no dramatic story there. No villain, no crisis point. Life just pressed down and I bent. I fell behind while it seemed like everyone around me was sprinting forward, landing jobs, landing lives. I kept telling myself I'd catch up. I kept telling myself it was temporary. I met Derek 3 years ago, right when I felt the most invisible I'd ever felt. He was charming and confident and upwardly mobile in that effortless way some people carry. I thought, maybe, that loving someone like that might feel like moving forward. Like being chosen by someone going somewhere meant I was going somewhere too. My mother passed 2 years ago. I never knew my biological father, and I spent most of my life quietly convinced that I simply wasn't the kind of person things happened for. Not the good things, not the important things, but contrast has a way of arriving when you least expect it. I wasn't glamorous, I wasn't connected, but somewhere inside me, there was something I hadn't found yet. And someone else already knew it. If you've ever been made to feel small by people who were supposed to love you, you already understand Delphine before her story even really begins. Unsubscribe so you don't miss what happens next. And honestly, have you ever been the outsider in a room you were supposed to belong in? Click hype, and let's talk about it. 3 weeks after the party, Derek's company hosted a formal sit-down anniversary dinner, black tie, celebrating the firm's 20th year. Spouses were formally invited. It said so on the printed card that arrived at our apartment. And I bought a dress I couldn't quite afford and spent the whole week quietly excited in a way I didn't admit out loud. It felt like a chance, a reset maybe, a night where I got to be included for real. When we arrived, I found out my name wasn't on the seating chart. Derek's assistant explained it with a pinched smile. A clerical mix-up, she said. It happens. Derek turned to me, adjusted his lapel, and said, "Just sit at the back near the bar. It's not a big deal, Del. Not a big deal." They put me at a small side table near the service entrance, alone. The waitstaff moved past me all evening like I was furniture. Couples seated at proper tables threw glances my way. Not mean glances, just pitying ones, which were somehow worse. A woman named Brenda, one of Derek's colleagues, stopped beside me at one point with a smile that had been practiced in a mirror. She said, "Oh, honey, don't worry. Not everyone has to be on display." I nodded. I thanked her. I don't know why I thanked her. Derek didn't come to check on me once. He laughed at the main table. He raised his glass during the toasts. He introduced himself to people, shook hands, worked the room. He never introduced me to anyone. I ate alone while the sound of his laughter drifted over from across the hall. Near the end of the evening, the company's CEO took the stage. He was tall, silver-haired, the kind of man whose stillness commands a room. His name was Mr. Whitfield. But he spoke about legacy, about the people who had shaped him. And then his voice shifted, quieter, more deliberate, and he talked about a daughter. A daughter he'd lost contact with years ago due to circumstances he called the greatest mistake of his life. He paused at the end of that sentence for a long moment and said, "I'm still hoping she finds her way back." I didn't register it. Not really. I was too busy sitting straight and keeping my face neutral and counting down the minutes. But I slipped out before the applause finished. I waited in the car with the dome light off and cried without making a sound. I drove home telling myself it was just one bad night, but sitting in that parking lot, something in me started to harden. I was done shrinking. The thing about being dismissed over and over is that at some point, dismissal stops feeling like pain and starts feeling like data. I began collecting data. The first thing I found out by accident, and a colleague's wife texted me, cheerful, casual, thanking me for hosting such a lovely dinner at our place. I hadn't hosted anything. I hadn't even known about any dinner. Derek had been scheduling regular gatherings at our home on the exact evenings I worked my bookkeeping shift, keeping the house full of his colleagues, building relationships, networking, all without me present. Deliberately without me present. When I brought it up, his answer was flat and immediate. "You always make things awkward, Del. You don't talk about the right things. It's easier when you're not there." I went quiet. I didn't yell. There was nothing to yell about because some statements are so revealing that responding to them feels like explaining why sunlight is bright. I just started paying very close attention. The second thing happened at a weekend company picnic. Derek told me it was completely casual. Jeans and a t-shirt, and no need to dress up. I arrived to find everyone in smart casual, blazers, pressed shirts, neat dresses. I stood out immediately in a way that made my skin feel hot. Derek's response, right there in front of a group of his colleagues, was smooth and practiced. I told her exactly what to wear. I honestly don't know why she doesn't listen. Polite laughter, the kind of laughter that isn't really about something being funny. A woman named Corinne, one of his work friends. I added, "Some people just aren't wired for these environments." Derek didn't correct her. He just nodded slightly and moved the conversation along. He made me feel like the problem was me. And the worst part? For a second, just a second, I almost believed him. That's the thing about being made to feel small enough times in a row. You start doing the work for them. The third discovery didn't require any intuition. It required arithmetic, which has always been my quiet language. And I was paying a household bill online when I noticed it, an irregularity in the joint account, a pattern of small, methodical transfers into an account number I didn't recognize. It wasn't sloppy. Derek wasn't careless with his professional work, and he wasn't careless here either, but he underestimated me. He forgot, or chose to forget, that I am trained to find exactly this kind of thing. I didn't confront him. I opened a spreadsheet instead. Dates, amounts, transfer timestamps. And I built a record the way I'd always built records. Clean, sourced, undeniable. My bookkeeper instincts engaged like muscle memory, like something that had been waiting for a reason. He underestimated me because of where I came from. That was the last mistake he would ever make. Delphine was no longer the woman who cried in parking lots. She moved through her days calmly now, watching, measuring. But the grief was still there. It hadn't gone anywhere, but it had rearranged itself into something useful. My bookkeeping work has always made me the person who sees what others miss. Numbers don't lie the way people do. Patterns don't cover their tracks. I'd spent years being the quiet one in the room, the one no one thought to watch. And that invisibility, the thing I'd grieved most about my marriage and my life, had been storing up something quietly useful all along. I had a folder. Physical and digital, the secret account and its transfers. Timestamped screenshots of messages I came across on a shared tablet. Messages that revealed far more than I'd been looking for. Receipts that didn't match Derek's explanations. Every piece dated, cross-referenced, filed. What they didn't know was that every time they left me alone in a room, every dinner party I wasn't invited to, every event where I sat in the corner, I wasn't sitting there feeling sorry for myself. I was watching and I was remembering. There was also the letter. A handwritten letter that had been mailed to my mother years ago, forwarded to me after her passing, tucked into an envelope with a law firm's return address in Atlanta. A man who said he'd been trying to find her, to find me. I had never opened it fully. Life had been pressing too hard. I'd filed it away in the same mental drawer where I kept things I wasn't ready for. I had a plan they never saw coming, and I just didn't know yet that the plan was already bigger than me. I finally called the number on that envelope on a Tuesday evening when the apartment was quiet. My hands were steadier than I expected. The call connected to a calm, measured voice, a semi-retired attorney named Mr. Greer, who told me he had been acting on behalf of a client trying to locate me for several years now. He asked me to come into his office, said it was important, said it was about my biological father. And I almost didn't go. I narrated a dozen reasons to myself on the drive over. It could be a mistake, it could be nothing. I was too tired for another disappointment. I didn't have room left for a new grief, but I went. Mr. Greer had an office that smelled like old books and quiet industry, the kind of space that has been used for serious things for a long time. He placed documents in front of me carefully, one at a time: birth records, a paternity confirmation letter, a documented history of contact attempts spanning years. My biological father, Mr. Greer explained, was Mr. Whitfield, the silver-haired CEO who had stood on that stage and spoken about a daughter lost to the greatest mistake of his life, the man whose company Derek worked for. My first reaction wasn't joy. I want to be clear about that. It was disbelief, then a long silence, then something that felt very much like grief. Not for what I'd gained, for all the years that had passed without it. Around this same time, Derek's behavior was shifting at work. He had begun quietly telling colleagues that I was unstable and difficult. He was building a narrative in advance, the way people do when they sense something is coming and want to get their version out first. At home, the gaslighting sharpened. He contradicted things I remembered clearly. He questioned my tone, my logic, my memory. I said nothing. Mr. Greer advised me to stay quiet a little longer, and I agreed. And I began meeting privately with Mr. Whitfield instead. Careful meetings, slow ones, sometimes more silence than conversation. He was not trying to buy back time. He was simply sitting in the fact of me, and I was doing the same with him. It was complicated. It was not a fairy tale, but it was real. The arrogance in Derek's world was at its absolute peak. He had no idea what was quietly forming around him. Nobody did. The annual leadership gala was the most prestigious event on the firm's calendar, and Derek had been talking about his rising leadership nomination for weeks. The way he mentioned it, casual but calculated, told me it meant everything to him. He told me the event was work only, that I'd just be bored, that there was no point in me going. I attended as the personal guest of Mr. Whitfield. I arrived composed. My dress was simple and well-fitted, my posture easy. I took my seat at Whitfield's table and waited. The ballroom filled slowly, the kind of room where the chandeliers are bright enough to catch every expression. I heard Derek before I saw him, that particular laugh. Then I watched his face as he scanned the room and found me. He went completely still. The award ceremony began. Before presenting Derek's nomination, Mr. Whitfield rose with the microphone and made an unscheduled announcement. He spoke briefly and without fanfare. But he had recently been reunited with his daughter, he said, lost to him for more than 30 years. He wanted to acknowledge her presence tonight. He looked at me. The room went silent in the way rooms do when something real is happening. Then, the applause came, full and genuine. Around Derek, heads turned. Colleagues began doing the quiet math. During the reception break, Derek found me in the hallway. His grip on my arm was tight, and his voice was low. "What is this?" "What did you do?" I removed his hand from my arm, calmly, completely. "I didn't do anything, Derek. I just finally stopped hiding." He tried to recover. He shifted his voice to something softer, more reasonable. Suggested we could talk about all of this at home, said I was causing a scene. I looked at him steadily. "I'm not causing a scene. You've been doing that for 2 years. I just finally showed up." A colleague passed between us, one who had witnessed the parking lot seating at the anniversary dinner, the picnic, the whispered dismissals, and paused just long enough to look at Derek and say quietly, "You should have been kinder to her." Derek had nothing for that. His jaw worked, but no words came. He didn't know, standing there in that hallway, that I had already forwarded my full financial documentation to a separate attorney who had already begun proceedings. The transfers, the secret account, the company-adjacent discrepancies, all of it was now in motion. Derek's financial misconduct was about to become Mr. Whitfield's professional concern, as well as my personal one. The award was quietly tabled for the evening. Derek left early. I stayed until the last song. In the weeks that followed, I filed for divorce. The evidence I had compiled was thorough enough. Thorough the way only a trained bookkeeper's evidence can be. That Derek had almost no leverage. He didn't fight hard. He understood that I had seen everything and documented everything, and that the window for his version of events had already closed. His leadership nomination was formally withdrawn, following an internal review prompted by the account irregularities. He wasn't let go immediately, but his future at that company was over. The trajectory he'd spent years building, the reputation he'd carefully tended, the narrative he'd been rehearsing, all of it quietly collapsed. Mr. Whitfield and I kept meeting, slowly, honestly. There were dinners that were mostly quiet and long conversations that felt like filling in a map. There were also silences between us that didn't need to be broken. It wasn't a fairy tale restoration. It was two people learning each other across a wide stretch of lost time. He can't give me back the years, I told myself, and I stopped needing him to. I re-enrolled in my accounting program, this time with support, this time with a reason that felt like mine. The night they seated me at a table by the service entrance, they thought they were putting me in my place. Turns out, they just gave me a clear view of exactly who everyone really was. If someone ever made you feel like you were too small for the room you were standing in, your story matters. Share it in the comments below. You never know who needs to hear it. And click hype to help this story reach the people who need it most. Every week, we tell stories about people who were counted out and came back stronger than anyone expected. If that's the kind of story that speaks to you, subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss one. And before you go, check out the video on screen right now. It's another story I think you'll feel deeply. I'll see you in the next one.